world moves so quickly. It's like we have to get stuff done, and if you can't communicate at any time of the day, I mean, you're not going to be able to do what you need to do. Usually the first thing I do in the morning, I'll hop online and then I'll actually connect with my development team out in the Ukraine, and we work on whatever video game project we have going on. We've been playing in a band. We'll get together, we'll rehearse. Usually, one of us will record some stuff on our phone or, our tablet, and we'll bring it in. Being able to sit anywhere and hum something into a phone or, into a tablet and be able to come back and share it with each other wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't be producing half the stuff I'm working on if we didn't have these devices.
My grandfather and my father were fishermen. They used to be totally dependent on nature, keeping an eye on the position of the sun and tracking the moon at night. Now, this cell phone gives us important information like weather, wave heights, wind speed and direction, as well as coordinates we need to find the right places. The results are amazing. If all of our fishermen had mobile phones like these, I really think our community would grow, and I think our people would have better lives.
I used to be sick a lot. I had trouble breathing. I would have blackouts. I couldn't do anything physical. I just couldn't have a normal life. My doctor ran tests and discovered that I had a heart problem. So he gave me a special wristband. It takes pictures of my heartbeat. Then my phone sends the info to the medical center. And if I have a problem with my heart, the doctor from the call center will call me right away. I now have more control over my life.
I use the tablet a lot for studying. It's a little smaller than the book. We use tablets to chat with each other, I still use it for fun and everything. It can make the study very efficient, so I can learn lots of things in little time. It's really impressive. Well, sometimes I put some music so I can read it while I'm playing without using, paper. Maybe I will be a musician when I grow up.
My name is He Fang, and I live in Beijing, China.
I'm Josh Shabtai. I'm a creative director here in New York.
My name is Adriano. I have 15 years old and live in São Paulo.
My name is Panier Selvan. I live in a village called Viram Batinam, and I'm a fisherman.
Wow. What an inspiring video.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So good afternoon. I think we're second to last session of the day, so we'll do the best we can to keep this interesting. You all can certainly help us do that with your questions. I said to everyone I met at Advertising Week last week that I am not just the head of advertising at the New York Times, but I am the brand new head of advertising at the Times. So I've been on the job for about 8 weeks, which means you should stop me and ask me all of your very hard questions. So this is the only chance I get to say, I don't know the answer to that. Anand and I were talking last week, and we were both saying how pleased we were to be having this particular conversation about the future of mobile technology. And it was very striking to me to think that, in fact, if there were one thing that everybody in this room, as professional marketers and as consumers, were united in spending an enormous amount of time and resources and curiosity on, it would in fact be, what do we do about mobile? And it's also so clear to me that the question isn't so much about what is the future of mobile technology, although we all want to know that, but how do we exist in a world where that future has, as that video so beautifully shown, that future has been pulled forward in many ways. And as we think about just the basic data that we as marketers all process every day, more than 60% of Americans having smartphones. I think it's 1 in 7 of every member of the world's population has a smartphone today. Closer to home at the New York Times, of our 2 million daily users, the vast majority of them, and many of the majority are still print subscribers, but the vast majority are in fact authenticated for digital and mobile use. A full 46% of all of our digital users come to us on a mobile device, and on a big news day, when something really important happens, those numbers are even bigger. So the favorite factoid that I think changed so much of the way we think about mobile at the Times was that during the month of the Boston Marathon bombings, we had 15% share of all smartphone use that month. So staggering number of people coming for news on their mobile device. So I think that all of that, the video that Anand, you just showed, gives us all a sense that the big question is really, will mobile and mobility kind of enter that pantheon of technology that changed the world, like electricity, like the printing press, and like everything that's come before it. And I think there's no better person than you to help lead us in that discussion. As Anand and I were getting to know one another last week, I said to him, he is both, in an executive and leadership role as the head of communications and marketing at one of the companies enabling mobility, and also a marketer himself who has to figure out how do we use this new set of behaviors to engage with our consumers. So a little bit on Anand. He is obviously in that leadership role at Qualcomm, but is probably best known for his 24 years at Intel, where among many accomplishments, he led the work on the Intel Centrino processor, which many do believe was kind of the beginning of the world thinking about using mobility the way that we harness it today. And what's very striking to me about your background is I always say to be a marketer today, you have to have a great mind for both art and science, and you have degrees in both in some ways. You've got an MBA, so to the extent that that's considered art, you've got a business mind, and also you have a background as a computer scientist. So we're delighted to have you here. I want to start with a very basic question, because I think there's probably a fair amount of, well, what is Qualcomm? What role does Qualcomm play in the world going on in people's minds right now? So why don't you just talk about that for a few minutes?
Great. First of all, thank you for having us here. It's a great privilege for us to be here as Qualcomm, not only to participate in the summit, but also to be here at this event. And congratulations. I didn't know you were on the roll for just 8 weeks, so congratulations. Before I answer who is Qualcomm, can I do a quick poll? How many of you have heard of Qualcomm? If you can, just raise your hand. Okay, so quite a few of you guys, right? So I'll go much faster in that case, right? Because more than 75% raised your hands. Qualcomm is a little-known company. We're about 27 years old. We have about 27,000 employees. About 11,000 of those 27,000 employees were added since 2008 in the deepest economic recession that the US had. Those 11,000 were all added in the United States, for those that actually are counting where they go. And as of November of last year, we are now the largest semiconductor company in the planet. It used to be Intel, a little-known company. We actually surpassed them. And as of today, we're still holding that lead. We go back and forth. So that's a little bit about us. And what we do is, effectively, if you own a smartphone, it has our technology in it. It either has our technology in it from the standpoint of we've licensed it and somebody else has built the componentry that your manufacturer has then used, or it has our own chipset in it. So either way, it has our technology in it. So that's what Qualcomm does. That's how we got our start. We invented effectively wireless. So the devices you guys love, we make the things that make those things work. So effectively, we make the things you love work. If you are interested in that sort of a mathematical continuity. So that's who Qualcomm is.
It's a great answer. So as you think about making the things that we love work, give us your definition, again, from that dual perch of a leader at a company that is about mobility and as a marketer facing a mobile world. What is mobile? Is it a channel? Is it a set of behaviors?
Mobile is still evolving. And it's very early in its life cycle. We like to think of mobile as effectively the largest technology platform in human history. There's about close to 1 billion phones that get shipped a year around the globe over the next several years. There's going to be another 5 billion smartphones shipped. And so by the time you get around to 2015-16, virtually the entire global population will have a smartphone of some form. That is a tremendous platform technology platform for humanity. The things that we have seen to date we haven't even started scratching the surface. Some of the examples that were talked about in the video, I like that video a lot. That particular fisherman that was talked about in that video, the backdrop of that story is there was a tsunami in the southern part of India and parts of Southeast Asia a couple of years ago. And Qualcomm had engaged with the operators in India to effectively enable, we wanted to do something to help those people who were affected. We engaged with the operators, and in this case, Tata Mobile in India, and provided them with the applications that could then be provided to the fishermen. And you saw that they're able to improve their catch. So the effect on their livelihood, their daily catch went up from the equivalent of $2 a day to close to $10 a day. Now in that market, that's a huge change in terms of life expectancy, in terms of sustainability. The example of the heart patient is, again, another example where you have a dramatic impact on a person's life. And these are examples that are very, very early and in their life cycle, and in the sense that you don't have hundreds and thousands of these stories, but those will come with time. So that's why I think about it is the largest technology platform, but it's in very early stage of its nascency. So we have a long, long ways to go.
Yeah. That was a big answer. So bigger than a channel, bigger than a set of behaviors, something that actually, technology that advances.
I think it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It becomes a lifestyle. In its eventuality, it becomes a lifestyle. Today, it's a technology platform, but as that technology platform gets embraced by application developers, by content providers, by healthcare professionals, et cetera, it becomes more of a lifestyle. The technology platform evolves into that.
Yeah. So we're in a room full of senior marketers, and I think we would all acknowledge that 15 years ago, our lives and our work was thoroughly disrupted by digital. Talk about mobile in the context of what will it disrupt? Because I think we would all say that things are even more disrupted now, but from your perch, what does that mean?
Yeah, I think over the last 10 years in companies, right, companies in marketing evolved from to a internet first sort of a strategy, right? You had to have a strategy, a digital strategy that embraced the internet in a significant way, right? And from a marketing standpoint, if you go back far enough in time, brands used to talk to their consumers largely through print.
Yep.
Then it went from print to radio, then went from radio to TV. But the previous technologies didn't go away. They still stayed. They diminished maybe in scope and impact. And then from TV, it certainly went to internet, and internet has pervaded all of our lives. The beauty of mobile, in our view, is it integrates all of those previous technologies into a very contextual point that's very important to the consumer in the brand life cycle. The point of purchase, for example, if I give you just one example, the point of purchase is a very important point in the consumer decision journey for any product, whether it's a car, a watch, a smartphone, an item of clothing. That's the moment of truth. That's when the consumer is putting cash down. That particular point of purchase today in retail, for example, if I take one that I know about quite a bit, which is electronic goods, is less than satisfying. Most of us that walk into a physical retail outlet to buy a PC or a smartphone, most of us are likely to be a lot more knowledgeable than the salespersons that are there to be able to help us out, right? It's not particularly their fault. They have to have a huge amount of information at their fingertips and locked away in their brains, and they just can't. Mobile technology can absolutely help that. You asked about how can it change and how will it change marketing. Mobile technology can absolutely help that in that it has context. It knows where you are. Your phone actually knows where you are. We have technologies that brands can use to bring the consumer into a retail experience and effectively give them a point of purchase ad, if you will, that draws them in. And then we have this technology called augmented reality, which I'll show off in here in a second, where brands can use that particular moment using the mobile technology to really augment the buying experience by mixing the physical world and the digital world in a seamless manner, so the experience gets a lot more richer for the consumer, and it augments a salesperson. So if I could, I would like to run a video reel, and then I'll talk about it a bit more.
Sure.
Could you guys run that video reel, please? Lot of stuff that we just threw at you. So let me pick out 2 or 3 examples
Yeah,
of that
please.
and tell you what it was doing. Qualcomm Vuforia is effectively an augmented reality technology. It's not an application. It's a technology platform. It's a technology platform that brands then build their applications on top of. So you might have, it went very quickly there, but you might have seen an example of Lego. What Lego is doing is they're animating their catalogs where a kid might want to look at a particular catalog and say, okay, I'm interested in this toy. You take your smartphone or your tablet, you hover it over the catalog, that image comes alive, it's a full 3D image. The kid interacts with it, can look at it, rotate it any which way. They get a very realistic feel for that particular thing. If they like it, from that application, they can click on that same thing and then go into the website, purchase it, right? Another example, Lowe's in Canada wanted to effectively take the catalog that they were shipping to their consumers and really make the catalog experience a lot more interesting. So Lowe's also used augmented reality Vuforia in our technology to basically animate that catalog. So the way they did it is you can hover the tablet or phone over the Lowe's catalog. If there's a washing machine, you can click on that. The washing machine gets a 3-dimensional image. Then you can interact with it. You can see which way the door opens. You can see what the spin cycle looks like, so on and so forth. And then you can even look at it in the context of your house and say, where does it fit? Because the picture that shows up on your smartphone is actually the picture that's around you. That's the mixing of the digital and the physical world. So you can actually take the smartphone image of the washing machine, place it in your house, and you get a much more realistic view of, okay, how would it fit in my house? So that's a second example. The third example I would give is Band-Aid. Actually, if you look at the stores in New York City, we just did a check on this. There's a line of Band-Aid that's called Magic Vision. It's branded Magic Vision. Magic Vision uses our Qualcomm Vuforia technology, and they basically partner with Disney's Muppet line of characters, and the Band-Aid has the Muppet characters on it. So you hover the, again, smartphone or tablet on top of that. If your child is injured and happens to be distracted or in pain, you hover the smartphone over that particular image, it gets recognized, and the characters come alive. And the child then starts to interact with the characters in the physical and the real world, and they are pleasantly distracted, and the parents get a little bit of a breather, right? So again, all of these are mixing the physical and the digital world, and our belief is ultimately these sorts of technologies will change the retail experience, certainly, but it also will change the marketing experience and allows brands to interact with their consumers in a far more richer way than has been possible, utilizing in a very context-sensitive environment.
That's all amazing. And I want to get a show of hands in the room. As marketers, how many of you are actively talking about using augmented reality in some capacity? It's a very small group of hands. So my question for you, Anand, is where are we in the life cycle of this? You know, are we just at the beginning and 5 years from now we'll be doing that, or are we 9 months away?
We're very early, right?
How fast is it coming?
As a technologist, I've been 100% wrong in terms of predicting the rate of these changes, right? So I'm guaranteed to be wrong here as well, right? We always think it's going to be happening faster than it really does, right? But certainly within the next 5 years, I think you'll see it. Some of you may have even seen it already this year. How many of you watched the Super Bowl? How many of you are Star Trek fans? The intersection of those two statements shrank in size, right? And then now it will shrink it even further. How many of you saw the Into Darkness ad that ran on Super Bowl? Anybody? Zero. So was there one? Oh, there was one. Okay, so that particular ad, the reason I pointed that out, it actually used some of this technology where if you had downloaded an application that Star Trek actually put out, It was an Into Darkness ad that you could download well before the Super Bowl onto your iPhone. It had a set of technologies built into it that when the ad ran on during the Super Bowl, it flagged you, right? And you got points. And they were making it a game, and eventually if you collected enough of those points, you got a free ticket to their premiere, right? So that's a very early indication, very, I would say, rudimentary application of this sort of technology where the digital and the physical worlds are getting mixed, but you're gonna see a lot more of that. And as these things get more robust, and some of those brands are the ones that are going to innovate in terms of how they actually activate augmented reality with their brands, I think you're going to see a lot more interesting things in the future. I'd say 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
I was hoping you would say 18 months. We could
3 to 5 years.
challenge the group in 2 years and see where we are, but that's amazing.
From us, you'll see it in 18 months.
Well said. One of the things that was particularly striking to me in how you answered the question, what is mobility and mobile technology really disrupting? You actually surprised me because you're basically saying it's disrupting retail. You gave a number of experiences that are essentially retail experiences, so further down in the consumer journey or in the purchase funnel. Talk for a few minutes. So many of us in the room are either launching businesses that will compete with television, are buyers of television. We are probably all users of television. What is mobility and the notion of this ubiquity of mobile devices doing to television consumption, and how do we as marketers need to think about that?
Mobile screens are effectively going to be one more screen that content is going to get consumed. And depending on the market, the content consumed on the mobile screen is actually far more relevant than in what gets consumed on the television. I'll give you an example for China, because China is a very important market for all of us, and certainly for Qualcomm. I was there recently about a month or so ago, and we're doing a lot of things there with several partners, but the one I want to talk about is Youku, right? In the span of about a year, Youku, by the way, for those of you who don't know, Youku is the equivalent of YouTube, but it's the Chinese version, right? And in the span of a year, Youku's video traffic that's coming from mobile devices has gone from nothing to about 50%, right? And by the end of this year, they're expecting it to be 70%, right? That means short clips and full features are actually being watched on their mobile devices. So you asked about, okay, what does this mean for advertisers and brand marketers? At least in that market, it effectively means that they better be thinking mobile first. I don't think that particular market is going to be unique in that regard. I think this market will be very similar. It depends on the demographic you're looking at. But certainly if I look at my kids, my son's 18, my daughter's 11, they do not consume their content on a large screen. They consume it on a tablet or an iPad mini or on their smartphone. So if that's an example of what's to come, it basically is the next content consumption screen. Right.
So as you're talking about next content consumption screen, I'm watching your left arm with a watch that we all refer to as a wearable.
Yes.
On it. How does that fit in? How do wearables?
So wearables has been talked about a lot in the last, certainly over the last year, right? Our view is wearables in the form of sensors and technologies will get integrated into your smartphone, and it'll get integrated onto your lifestyle seamlessly, right? Seamlessly meaning onto devices that you use and are accustomed to already. I don't mean glass because that has impacts on. Certainly, I would not wear glass. I already wear glass, and it's going to be difficult to wear another glass on top of glass, right? But a watch is something most people wear, right? And a watch is something that's very seamless in terms of integration standpoint. Why do I say that? Most of us, whether we realize it or not, pick up our smartphones and we look at it about 150 times a day, right? Just to check messages and so on and so forth. Whereas on this device, right, basically you can get the same things that I get here, I can pick it up here, right? In the sense, I'll show it to you. I'm sorry, you guys can't see it, but she'll describe it to you. This is a Qualcomm Talk smartwatch. We just launched it 2 weeks ago. It's not shipping yet. It'll ship in very limited production in the fourth quarter of this year, direct to consumers. And basically, looks like I just got a text. I'll just whoop. It is a pre-production unit, so it may not actually perform the way it's supposed to.
I've yet to see the time on the watch. There it is, 4:42.
Let's see if it does that. Okay, that's the text that I just got, and
So he got a text that says, "Don't flub this."
I think that's from Kim, who's on my PR team. She's sitting right over there, right? Thank you, Kim. Appreciate that. I'll try not to. But basically, it has the communications hub, so I can see all my text messages. I should be able to call from there as well, and I can actually reply to this as well if I had it set up, but I don't have that set up. I can listen to my music. I can pick up my calendar. So this is my calendar, the same thing that's on that, right? So a lot of the functions that you would normally do on your smartphone, you'll be able to do on this. And the simplicity is you don't have to take it in and out of your bag. It's a lot more seamless, a lot more easy. If you're sitting in meetings, it's disruptive to open up your iPhone or your smartphone. Impolite in many cultures, company cultures, depends.
Right.
In this case, it's much more subtle. You're responding to it. You're being polite. You're being mindful of the corporate mores of whatever company you're in, et cetera, right? And we think it strikes at a different demographic, right? It certainly strikes at a younger demographic, but I think it also strikes at an older demographic where they may not want to be pulling that on and out, in and out all the time, right? Our contribution to this is, in fact, it's not our intent to get into the consumer products business. That's not the goal. Our goal largely was to set a bar of what these things could be. So the screen technology here is something that is ours. It's Mirsol technology, which is, I won't get into the details, but basically it's very, very low power. You can see it in bright sunlight. You can see it in dark rooms like this. And what it does is it reflects the ambient light, so you're able to see it. And so that's it. That's the smartwatch. And I think you're going to see more like this where the technology gets integrated into these sorts of usages that people are already familiar with. And as that happens, it's not that far-fetched to imagine that that's going to have sensors that monitors the various signals from our body, heart rate, temperature, so on and so forth. And then based on that is constantly sending information to my medical provider on what changes they need to be doing or not doing if I'm a patient that happens to need that kind of monitoring. If I don't, then it's just information that it's collecting, and it's connecting how many footsteps I travel per day, and so on and so forth. So those are the sorts of things that we think wearables will wind up becoming.
So when will that be as ubiquitous as the Nike Fitband or its competitors?
Nike Fitband still is, I wouldn't say it's ubiquitous yet.
Only in this town and
right?
only if you work in marketing, right?
Yeah, yeah. And if you're in California, it's quite ubiquitous in California. But I would say same over the 0 to 3 year time frame, this will go faster because it's not a huge change as opposed to the augmented reality discussion we had. This is something that I think consumers are already looking for something like this. So I think this will happen faster, and I think it'll happen over the 0 to 3 year time frame. And there's a lot of experimentation going on in this category. Certainly we're doing this stuff. Sony, Samsung, Apple, all are rumored to be doing something in this domain. And I think that'll just hasten the innovation in this space.
So as you think about Qualcomm wanting to hasten the innovation, your competitors wanting to hasten the innovation, what keeps you up at night? Are there things that are obstructing either the interconnectivity of all these devices or the ability for more consumers to access them beyond price? What's the worrisome stuff?
So the things we worry about are when you're looking to get these sorts of devices connected. Fundamentally, the key thing is breaking through to what the consumer really wants, right? So the trick to building the Qualcomm Talk wasn't actually what's in it; it's what's not in it. There's a lot of stuff that could have gone into it that we actually didn't put into it. It's very, very, very simple in terms of its design and its execution, and it's resonated. We actually didn't put a whole lot of marketing into it. Most of our marketing is through digital and social means. We launched it at our own developer event, targeted at developers. We were trending on Twitter on the day that we announced it. Over the weekend, there was a poll that was being done on the internet in terms of the smartwatches that people would buy. We're number one on that list, and we're about several hundred votes ahead of the next one. and the one that has had a couple of $100 million of marketing behind it is second from the bottom, right? So this is an example of where focusing on a capability that we believe achieves breakthrough and doing less is being more here, right? And we were also innovative in terms of the way we marketed it, has achieved the result that we're quite proud of.
So that's amazing. That's basically saying less marketing, more focus on what's the consumer need, and are we developing that product?
And we went after, it's a category itself that has a lot of interest in it. So just by being in it is generating a lot of buzz. People are writing about it.
Yep.
And I think we focused on having a breakthrough product with breakthrough technology that resonated more. And it frankly got written about a lot more and got a lot of digital pickup and a lot of print pickup. And that helped us more than anything else.
It's amazing. So as you say that, it makes me think that today's mobile devices, the watch, your phone, all of our phones are so much smaller than a desktop, and that has made many of us question what is the appropriate experience from a marketing standpoint to present that actually engages a consumer. Two questions there. Give us your experience with that as a marketer, again, working in a company that's about mobility. And then the larger question, is within the context of a mobile world, is brand more or less important? And does the definition of brand change?
Okay. Great questions. From a content standpoint, we certainly think mobile first in terms of how do we reach the audience that we want to be able to reach. The mechanisms to be able to go do that are still in the process of, some are still in the process of development, channels, for example. If you want to reach, if you want to do banner ads on mobile, it's horrible. It's actually pointless. There's a lot of innovation that's still needed there to be able to make it useful enough where somebody who's actually going to watch a banner ad on a mobile device. On the other hand, there are other ways of reaching a mobile consumer besides banner ads that we are looking at. Websites, as websites get done and companies do websites, I think every company has to think mobile first, right? And that's something we ourselves are also deficient in. Our website isn't exactly the most friendly today to be able to, and it's a bit of a point that I'm a bit chagrined about, right? Because we should be a best-in-class for our own website. We're not, and that's an area for us to go improve on and make that be mobile first. So all of those things matter, but I would say those are in the same context, in the journey of making all of these mobile first, we're still very early, right? I think the innovations will happen. I think there will be change. I think you will probably see a lot happen in this area over the next 0 to 3 years, right? The second part of your question was brand, right? I think mobile is it allows brands to interact with their consumer in a fundamentally different way, and makes that particular device, because you're always carrying it. It's always on you, and you're always thinking about it, right? So I think there's a way that brands will be able to take advantage of that screen that previously they haven't been able to take advantage of, right? And I keep coming back to that retail point of purchase experience, because that is actually an extremely important point outside of the initial consideration space time frame or evaluation phase time frame. And the retail point of purchase experience, I think, is a space where there's a tremendous amount of innovation that will get applied over the next several years. And I think the way it will get applied is through the mobile screen. So that's, I think, the intersection. And brands that take advantage of that will benefit over the long haul. And brands that don't will, I think, start to feel a bit jaded over time. Right.
So you're decidedly pointing to kind of the lower funnel. There's greatness in the opportunity at the lower funnel, at the point of purchase at retail via mobile, without saying that there isn't also opportunity in the upper funnel.
Correct.
Which I think for many people in the room begs the very the reality question that we're all living with, which is, when will measurement and the ability to quantify that which happens on mobile and target improve? Where are we in that life cycle?
Well, I mean, in the digital domain, all of this is digital, right? In the digital domain, you can instrument pretty much everything,
Yep.
right? So the ability to instrument is there, right? The ability to be able to instrument and extract information that's of value, right, and analyze it, well, that's actually where the secret sauces, and most of that is inside companies, right? So companies are doing that. Some companies are doing that very well, some not so much, right? But I think the ability to be able to instrument it and get information out of it, I think that's there already, right? I think Nielsen has subdivisions inside their larger organization that are focused exclusively around that, right? And they do a pretty good job of that, right?
Yeah.
So, and there are startups in the Silicon Valley area that are focused on this particular domain in terms of both being able to improve the mobile experience as well as being able to provide instrumentation that marketers can take advantage of. So this is an area where if you just look at the amount of VC money going in the startup community, there's a tremendous amount of innovation going in this area.
We are all trying to figure out how to get the data that we want. Much of it we have, and it's just how do we use it to do something with it. So with that, let me open it up. I'm sure there are lots of marketers in the room who have questions about the future of mobile technology for Anand. Or at least one. Yes. I think there's a microphone. Nope, please. Yes.
I think Qualcomm is a fascinating company that you used to be in the handset market and years ago you got out of it, focused on the development of technologies that other companies could license, and that became a business model. Was it a marketing decision to decide to develop talk as a product, or was it an engineering decision that you actually wanted to be selling a consumer product? Great question. And it harkens back to the history that you were actually talking about, where Qualcomm actually made smartphones several years ago, and phones, and then we exited that business and started to license the technology and instead make the technology that went into the phones. Talk was a similar sort of a thought process. The technologies that go into that have been in development for about 2.5 years. We made the decision early part of this year to actually build the watch ourselves and put it out into the marketplace. In large part, for us, it's a business development vehicle, right? And it's not so much that we get into that we want to get into the consumer products business. What we want to be able to do is light a beacon in terms of what the smartwatch should look like, what it should be like, and what the key technologies, at least from our point of view, should be in that, and point the way in that direction. So that's really why we did it. So is business development marketing? Yeah. But was that the sole reason? No, it wasn't the sole reason. It was largely to effectively engage our customers in a dialogue that would have been richer than us simply taking a bag of goods to them and saying, okay, this can do this, this can do this, this can do this. Our ability to integrate all of those facilitated a much richer dialogue with the same set of customers, right? And in fact, the announcement has gotten a phone ringing from several partners, some of whom have their own product in the marketplace and are now seeing that this actually is getting better resonance. And even though we were telling them the same thing before, this has gotten the phone ringing a lot better than the previous dialogues we were having with them. Did that answer your question? Yeah. Right. So as an ingredient supplier, sometimes you have to do this to get the attention focused on the things that we think matter. Right?
Other questions? Yes, please.
Hi, that augmented reality tool that you were talking about seems...
Can you speak up a bit? I can't hear you.
The augmented reality technology seems very innovative, and I can see how marketers want to take advantage of it. Do you have a sense of how much application development is going to happen? So, in other words, real business functionality rather than just branding initiatives to build client relationships. I mean, do you see, in the future, obviously some of these new things are really exciting and dynamic, but maybe have more limited applicability for true business development?
Yeah. Thank you for that. So the Vuforia platform, which is our augmented reality platform that I talked about, I largely focus on the marketing examples since I was talking to a marketing audience. The technology platform is actually very broad, and it's being used in education. It's being used in healthcare. It's being used in museums. It's being used in a whole range of areas, right? And in terms of the broadness of and the depth of use of those of that particular technology platform. There are a few other augmented reality platforms in the marketplace that we compete with. Our Vuforia platform has about 82% market segment share from an application developer standpoint. Application developers that are using augmented reality, but 80+% of them are choosing our platform to build their applications around, right? And the application ranges are the ones I just talked about: healthcare, education, all sorts of life, right? And some business applications as well. Did that answer your question?
Other questions for Anand? So, Anand, while we're waiting to see if there are any others, I have one more for you,
Sure.
which is, what will this group, many of whom will be at CES, see this year that we haven't seen in past years? Whether it's from you or from anybody else, Qualcomm or anyone else.
I think the thing you're likely to see a lot of is more integration of sensors, right, into your smart devices, whether it's your smartphone, your tablet, your smartwatch. I think you're going to see a lot more of that, and in some very interesting ways, right? Gestures today is a way that you can use to communicate with your game device that's in your living room attached to your TV. You're going to be able to start to use gestures with your smart devices that you carry around with you, your mobile devices. You'll start to see some of that at CES this year. That's one. Second, this is content is going to get consumed, I talked about earlier, in a mobile device in a very significant way, right? At CES, you will see brand manufacturers launch smartphones, tablets, and TVs utilizing, in this case, our technology, what we call the Qualcomm Snapdragon 800, which has integrated within it Ultra HD displays, which is 4K, 4 times the display resolution of your HD display, along with digital 7.1 surround, right? Now, the beauty of this is the digital 7.1 surround, you don't have to have 7 speakers. We actually do the digital processing on our chip, and you can use your normal headset, whether that's your iPod headset or a Bose headset or your Klipsch headset or whatever it happens to be. Just plug them in, and you're going to get the sense that you have 7 speakers around you because our software and our processor is going to fool your brain into thinking that. So you'll see, certainly those are 2 examples that you will see at CES, and that gives you a very realistic sort of a home entertainment experience in your hand, and I call that democratizing the home theater for people who can't afford it. And for markets like China, that's huge. For kids going off to school and colleges, you can send them off with this, right? So you'll see some of that at CES.
Amazing, amazing. I'm still on the Band-Aid that has the
yeah.
dancing Muppets above it. So just to wrap up, I think that was quite a bit of insight. I wrote down what I thought were some of the most salient, that mobile is neither behavior nor a channel, but the largest technology platform in human history. That what we are disrupting most is potentially retail with augmented reality, that augmented reality itself is about the combining of the digital and the physical world, that for marketers, we should be thinking about how those 2 things come together for the consumer in communication and also in everything they do with our products. I loved what you said, that the real work for marketers is just figuring out what consumers really want and getting the products out fast enough that deliver on those. You said, and I don't disagree, that banner ads are questionable. I think you used a different word, pointless, on mobile devices. But you qualified it by saying, and I thought this was really important, that there will be formats that work and that there are not enough marketers who actually have mobile optimized consumer experiences. So it wasn't lost on me that we're having this very advanced discussion about sensors and better instruments for understanding measurement, but in fact, we still don't have enough kind of mobile optimized experiences at the most basic level. And the advice you gave to all of us, I was going to ask you as the last question, what would you advise a room full of marketers? But I thought it was embedded in all of your answers, which was to think mobile first. Yep. So excellent discussion. A big thank you to Marissa and the team at NYSE, Euronext, and also to Qualcomm for participating with us in this.
Thank you for hosting us.